You know, I've had an up and down relationship with him. We're currently in love again, but it's been patchy, I'd have to say. But the Albanese should stick with Rudd, and he'll and just be very strong and play a straight bat. That's what he's got to do.
Very few world leaders have openly explained what it was really like negotiating with Donald Trump. That's what makes this clip so interesting. Former Australian Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull shares exactly how he dealt with Trump, why he believes his approach worked, and why so many other leaders got it wrong. Before we dive into the full story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Now, Turnbull doesn't hold back. He takes a few humorous shots at Trump, but behind the laughs is a serious political lesson. He's speaking from first-hand experience after negotiating directly with Trump, making his perspective especially worth hearing. Let's watch what Turnbull had to say, and then we'll break it all down together afterward.
People forget, Australians forget, that in the imperial capital they regard deference as their due. So if you go to Washington, or indeed to Beijing, or in the old days to London, and you grovel and carry on and suck up, they just say, oh, that's great. Is it time for the next sycophant? Surely he's had his 10 minutes of sucking up. It is crazy. You win no respect at all. And of course, with Trump, who is like the ultimate narcissistic, blustering bully, it is the worst possible thing to do. Now, I was very lucky with Trump in this sense that my first engagement with him, or enragement with him, to use a fabulous Joe Stiglitz word that he often uses about Fox News, was over this, everyone here knows about it, was, over a deal I'd done with Obama that Trump wanted to renege on. Anyway, and we had a huge, blazing row where I basically said, you've got to stick to your word, and Trump said, come on, Malcolm, you're a businessman, you must have reneged on deals. Said, no, no. No, he did. That's exactly what he said. Said, no. I said, ask your friends. We've got friends in common. My reputation is being a man of my word. I've got lots of other bad things people say about me, but people generally haven't said that I'm untrustworthy in that regard. So I made this point to Trump anyway, and so the conversation began, no way, Jose, and ended up, yes, I hate you. Yes, but I hate you, basically. So he did. He said the call was worse than the one he had with Putin. Although, as I later learnt when I saw them together, he really loves Putin. So it's a bit complex. But the point is, by standing up to Trump and not, doing what they were, American side were back channeling us to not raise the issue, I won his respect, and I was able to get some very good outcomes for Australia. And so, you read all this stuff, particularly in the Murdoch press, about how you've got to have an ambassador that sucks up to Trump and you've got to flatter him. That is all bullshit, believe me. I mean, I promise you, there are a lot of leaders at the time Trump came in who did exactly that, and they got nothing. The only way to deal with bullies is to stand up to them. And the thing that an Australian Prime Minister knows when they go into a room with an American president is that they're the one person in the White House the president can't fire. So all his staff, they've got to be careful, because the boss can go, oh, I'm sick of you telling me what I don't want to hear, you're out. Okay, and that's what Trump does. But if you're the Prime Minister of Australia, the only people that can sack you are your colleagues back home, which, of course, I'm very familiar with the process. But so it's really important. It's really important for Australia to engage, from a position of strength. I mean, there is a complexity there. I'll just conclude on this point that Albanese has to recognise, and I had to too, that the sort of right-wing media ecosystem here, mostly News Corp, but not entirely, is basically, Trump is now the central sort of avatar of that universe. And so if disagreement between an Australian Prime Minister and Donald Trump, they will side with Trump.
Yeah.
So But that is no reason to do anything other than be absolutely strong, play a straight bat, and of course, needless to say, the last thing. Trump got really bad press when he had this tantrum with me. It really did not help him, and I think he was very conscious of that. As far as our ambassador, the Australian government appoints the Australian ambassador to Washington, and just like the American government appoints the American ambassador to Canberra, and the idea that you'd be taking direction from the White House as to who our ambassador should be. I mean, declaring an ambassador persona non grata is a big deal. That's the kind of thing you do to the Russians when they're spying on you or something. So that isn't going to happen. So, Albo, whatever people think of Kevin, and, I've had an up and down relationship with him. We're currently in love again, but it's been patchy, I'd have to say. But the Albanese should stick with Rudd, and and he'll and just be very strong and play a straight bat. That's what he's got to do.
I have to say I really enjoyed watching that. Whether you agree with Malcolm Turnbull's politics or not, there was a clear strategy behind what he was describing. His argument wasn't that leaders should pick unnecessary fights. It was that constantly flattering a powerful leader doesn't automatically produce better outcomes. In his view, standing your ground and negotiating from a position of confidence earns far more respect than simply telling someone what they want to hear. That really stood out to me because, looking around the world today, it does feel like we've seen a number of leaders take a much more cautious approach when dealing with Donald Trump. Turnbull is essentially arguing that a different strategy can be more effective, and he backed that up with his own experience. For a bit of context, the disagreement he referenced centered on a refugee resettlement agreement that had originally been negotiated with President Obama. Trump criticized the deal publicly and described it in extremely negative terms, which sparked widespread media attention and criticism. According to Turnbull, refusing to back down during those discussions ultimately helped Australia secure the outcome it was seeking. Whether you agree with that assessment or not, it's an interesting perspective from someone who was actually in the room. We often hear endless speculation about how world leaders should handle difficult negotiations, but it's much rarer to hear a former prime minister explain exactly what happened from his own point of view. I'm curious what you think. Do you believe Malcolm Turnbull's approach is the right way to deal with Donald Trump? Or do you think other leaders have been right to take a different path? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments because I genuinely like to hear your perspective. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe, turn on notifications so you never miss an upload, and leave a like if you want to support the channel. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.